how on earth did you guys find this place?
So it's okay. In at X, I went to X,
What's X?
St. Francis Xavier University, and I did my my bachelor's. I did both my degrees there, my undergrad and then my B.Ed. And there was this one professor. I to be honest, I wasn't a big fan of her. And as the year went on, she just kept on. I could tell that she was very adventurous. She'd always be teaching in like different places in the province. So like she'd work at St. FX, which is in Antigonish, but then she'd like go all the way to like Yarmouth, which is what 5-6 hours away. And it's like, man, you're doing that trip constantly. And she was like, yeah, you know, it's I love to travel. And she'd tell us about her experiences in the north. Never really cared much for it. I remember I did an interview for China, and then I really wanted to go to China.
Would you ever still go? Would you ever consider going up there?
It is a bucket list thing. Like I really do want to go to like China, Japan, Thailand. Like that area of the world fascinates me. So I do. It is definitely something that I'd like to do. But so after, obviously when COVID hit, there was no traveling. So this lady that I wasn't a big fan of goes, hey, I think you and your wife would do great in the north. And I was like, huh. Out of all people, you're talking to the guy who doesn't, you know, I really didn't care for. Anyway, fast forward, we find out that she was actually the old principal at the school that we're working at, and she was a recruiter for the north.
What? Those people exist?
They do, and
I haven't heard of a single person. That's crazy. You found one.
I did find one. And her sole purpose, like she did not care for any other place. It was, I'm recruiting for the north because she saw that she knew the need for it. I'll be honest with you. When we first got, at that point, I did the interview. I did what she said. I did the recruitment phase, and then, I was very interested in Fort Mac though, Fort Mac, Alberta, because we.
Do they make a lot of money there for a teacher?
Not Nunavut money, but they were solid.
Yeah.
Right, because I think Nova Scotia would start you off at about, let's say, 53, and Fort Mac.
Which, how does anybody live off of that?
It's not. It's. I don't know. Like I know in the past they would tell you that, you know, compared to Ontario, you can, obviously the lower wage would compensate for the living. So it's like lower, yeah, we have a lower wage, but it also doesn't cost a lot to live in Nova Scotia. But that's not the case in 2023, but we're still making 53 grand, right?
Right.
So I want to go to Fort Mac, which they don't make as much as the north here, but they started off at about 82 at the time.
Do they get northern allowance?
They did. So their northern allowance was about, I want to say, 14 grand. So 82 will turn to 68 without their allowance. And at the time, the recruiter told me, because Fort Mac is growing and populating as heavily as it is, there's a possible talks that they don't have to entice people with this northern allowance anymore. So there was rumblings that they're probably going to take away that 14 grand. And coming out of university, I don't want to act like, I don't want to say that, hey, you know, our decision was solely based on finances, but our decision was really based on finances. You know, like we're coming out of university,
right? And
me and my wife have 2 student loans, we have a bunch of money that we got to pay off, right? And it's just, she's from Toronto, I'm from Ottawa. You can't live on
student loans.
No, you can't have student loans and then live on that salary, and then buy a house and do the things that we want to do. So anyway,
that shouldn't be the case. That shouldn't be for teachers. Like, you know, it's the people that are shaping the youth. They're doomed from the beginning.
Right?
Yeah.
And I just, there's a lot of places that value education. I just feel like here we say the right things, but for us to do the job that we have, it's not easy to deal with that like those many characters, and those many personalities, and those many temperaments, and those many traumatic traumatic minds. Like different people have different traumas that they have to deal with, and it's our job to not only accommodate each one of them, but to care for each one of them as their own individual, and then make plans for each one of them. But then you're gonna pay me at the rate of, you know what I mean?
You know what's dumb? When I was working down south as a sub, like a substitute teacher, I loved being a sub because there's no responsibility. However, and you actually do make a little bit if you work 5 days a week, you actually do earn a little bit more than a full-time teacher. But still, I was earning less than a first aider attendant that took a 2-week course.
Right.
They're earning more money than somebody that went to school for 5 years and hated every single second of it.
It's crazy, right?
It's so dumb.
I'll wrap my thing off before I pass on, because I'm interested to hear how O got up here.
It's because of you guys. That's it. Done.
Okay. What? Really?
Pretty much.
But so essentially, what happened is Fort Mac kind of fell through.
Right.
Like, I wanted to go to Fort Mac. Ash was like, we got to go to Nunavut. And everyone I spoke to who lived in Nunavut would tell us just the great things about Nunavut. I feel like, honestly, I'm a pessimist at heart. Like, I look at things and I look at what can go wrong first. That's my view. It hate it or love it, it's my...
So, like, you weren't presented all of the facts?
I didn't think I was. I just didn't feel like I was, and I did not feel comfortable. I did not like the idea. And there was one time, I remember, like, Ashley, my wife, goes, hey, I'm going to go see these people who lived in Nunavut, and I want to hear their experience. For some reason, I was upset that day, and I said, I'm not going to go. And then last minute, right before she walks out the door, I'm like, okay, whatever, I'm going to come. I kind of felt bad that I put her in this, like, I just kind of left her hang, so I was like, I'm going to go. That happened to be the best thing for my decision to come up here, because that couple who lived, they were a little bit further up north. I can tell you exactly which community they lived in, but they told me the authentic truth, and that's when I was like, that makes more sense to me. Now I have an understanding. I don't just have the flowers. I get the mud. You know what I mean? And so when that happened, when they told me their stories, when I got to see the gun collection, when I got to see the taxidermied bear that they had, I was like, this is it. Now I can form my expectations, and this I can do, right? Whereas before I was upset because I don't even know what to... I can be blindsided. I don't like the idea of being blindsided, so I hated the idea of coming. But as soon as that... Nothing changed, but what I perceived was the truth. And that truth led me to say, that's where I want to be. Now that makes a lot more sense. So that's how I ended up coming up here.
Holy... So is that the common theme? Like, I swear, most people don't know this place exists. And it seems like the only way to find this place is by knowing somebody else that was already up here. Omar, did you have a similar experience? How did you get up here?
Well, as I said before, it's just because of these guys.
It truly was that simple, eh?
So, yeah, no, it really was.
Would you have ever stayed down south? Or were you committed to coming up here?
So, I guess we should lay some context. Ash is the wife of Will. Chantel, my wife. Ash and Chantel have been lifelong friends. So that was the bridge between our experience of coming here. So if it weren't for Ashley and Will, would we have come here? Hard to say. Probably not. Unless we knew somebody else that had some personal first-hand experience of not just the territory, but of the community as well. But the thing is, like, we were looking to get out of the city. The thing is, we weren't sure where. we knew that we're done with the city life. We both grew up in southern Ontario.
What do you like about the small communities?
Number one, the freedom. And
Yeah.
it's kind of weird though. It's you have like I have a sense of freedom here where, like, for example, I could just throw on my jacket, jump on the Honda, and then drive out to the tundra, and like I'm in the middle of nowhere within minutes. I can just walk to the Hudson Bay.
Do you ever do that? Like, you have a stressful day?
Well, that's what's great about having dogs is that the dogs, and I'll never forget Cesar Milan's quote is I'm gonna paraphrase, but it's pretty much what he said. Dogs are the connection between us and nature. Like it kind of like reminds us that we have that relationship between like the environment around us and all that, and the animals and all the other life forms that we share this planet with. So the dog really is like it gets you out there. Otherwise, I wouldn't be on those walks by the bay.
Right.
So I'm actually very thankful that I can go through this experience with a dog, because I find those dog walks really help ground my mental state. Yeah.
How do you feel about the dogs in this town?
Well, funny you say that. There's definitely room for improvement in terms of how, which, you know what the saddest thing about the whole dog situation here is, the relationship between Inuit and dogs for thousands of years was so incredibly strong and personal and like a symbiosis relationship. And now it feels like that relationship has been lost through time and through trauma and all the other things in the past 100 years, relocation. Now the relationship between Inuit and dogs is not like it used to be. I mean, the dogs were integral to their survival, their mobility, right? And now it's just like they're just alarm systems for their stuff.
Before we had 24-hour bear patrol,
Which is honestly scary, because like there are bears in this town.
There are,
especially in the morning, because I go to school at 5 in the morning or 5:30.
Wow.
I'm terrified. I think I there's part of me that wants to like invest in a pistol on my side, but then once I go to school, where do I put it?
I think where they would rebut your idea of like the animal as a domesticated partner is, well, when you walk at 5 in the morning, just listen to the dogs.
Right.
Right.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
When the dog catches it, if you hear barking in this certain area,
don't go there.
Then you know.
I have this tiny thing of mace. It's like for coyotes. Yeah. I'm like, this is gonna do nothing. It's gonna do something, but I'm still gonna die.
And those things are heavily dependent on the wind, speed, and direction.
We used to work with Arad and I used to work with this person, and then she was saying how one time she wanted to test out the bear mace, but she didn't take into account that the wind was blowing towards her.
Yep.
And she said it was brutal.
You might as well just spray that right in your face.
Right? But they do give bear spray. I got bear spray maybe the second or third day that I was in this town, and I remember I carried it in my jacket for 2 years.
Why don't you still? That sounds like a good idea.
It's just because I've never encountered a bear, unless I intentionally sought one, whether by going to the dump or if I went to the land. I remember going into the land and actually seeing one in its natural habitat, and I thought that was epic. But I've never once in my life seen one unless I went to the dump to actually find one.
Interesting. Have you seen one, Omar?
Not in town, no.
Really?
So
what?
So that sense of, I felt like after 2 years, that sense of danger that I had, which is why I was carrying it, that was lost to me, because I was like, I'm just wasting pocket space.
Right, 100%. And the pockets are necessary. Right. Like in an environment where the environment's trying to kill you 9 months of the year, you need your pocket space.
Honestly, like there's so many other things that I can put in here other than bear spray. I've never once. And then one of our old coworkers who's been here for 5 years, he said in the whole 5 years he's never seen one. So Now we have 7 years worth of.
But
Yeah.
the climate is changing.
Right.
So the ice that they used to live on is diminishing, and they're coming closer to town. Like the last year's, I can't remember what time of the year it was, but somebody in town, they at 5:30 in the morning, there's a polar bear digging through the trash.
Right. It's a good thing I don't wake up at 5 in the morning.
Yeah, 100%. So one of the one of the things that I think is a good point that we should be trying to incorporate what it's actually like to live here, and so that we can invite teachers that are meant to be up here. Because I think a lot of the times we invite teachers that have no idea what it's actually like. They get up here, they freak out, and then they leave. So one of the questions I have for you guys is, what is your morning routine like? What time do you wake up?
Can I touch on something before you get to that?
Yes,
one?
absolutely. Yes.
I thought what Omar said was very like important about a place like this. Like this place actually taught me so much. Like, there is something about living in cities like Toronto, Ottawa, about that. I can't stand. It's like, it's kind of like, it's very Meet the Joneses. Like, how I'm dressed now, how my appearance is now. I feel like I'd be looked down upon if I were to do that over there, right? And I think that's a very important attribute to tell someone who's coming in.
Like, what do you mean?
Like, I feel like right now I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
I'm in pants. I'm in just a regular black shirt. I'm in a toque. I feel comfortable right now.
It's casual Friday.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
Casual Fridays in Ottawa is I gotta smell nice. I gotta wear this. My shoes have to be clean. You know what I mean? And it's like you're always being graded when you walk out that house. And I feel like that level of that gives you this sense where it's like, well, I have to be here. I have to. Oh, I don't own a house and I still live with my parents. Oh man, people are thinking I'm a bum. Oh, I drive a Toyota and I don't drive a foreign made car. Oh man, I'm a bum. You know what I mean? And it's like, I feel like a place like this is important. Especially, I feel like that's something that I do highlight when people want to come over, just to kind of segue into your question, and Omar could jump more on it. But what Omar said was, it really, I felt that, because you can actually just be yourself.
Yeah.
You do not have to, no one cares. No one does. No one cares about the appearance. And I thought,
Right.
I spoke to a mental health nurse up here,
Yeah.
and I asked him, what's the percentage of like body dysmorphia that you deal with? Like,
What does that mean?
like, how many people come into your clinic for mental health counseling and they say, I'm not happy with my body? He said in the years he's been here, not one. That's a great, even though we find so many differences and so many things that need to be improved about a place like this, not having one person care about societal perceptions of what you look like is huge, and that allows you to be yourself. Like, I liked when you said that.
And I think, like, because when I said freedom, I think I was touching up on two things there. And I mentioned the physical freedom of, like, jumping on the Honda and then getting out on the land in a place where, like, people pay thousands of dollars to go on expeditions up here. And we get to do it leisurely, on an evening or whatever, on a weekend. But then the freedom that I expand on, which I'm glad that you did, is that freedom of being yourself. And I think that's why I find going south so uncomfortable now.
Right.
Because I feel that that societal pressure, like whether it's through the commercials or the billboards or your peers or whatever it is, it's this constant external force trying to manipulate you into something that oftentimes is not who you are.
Right.
And more importantly is distracting you from discovering who you are.
It is.
And I think that's the key, is that when you go down south, there's so many freaking distractions that you can't. And I think that's kind of why I was going nuts. I felt like I was going crazy and bombarded by all these, like, different forces that are just pulling me away from who I actually am.
Right.
And then coming up here was like I don't know, it was like a breath of fresh air, I guess, so to speak. It's like, oh, I can finally breathe and be myself, and no one's gonna judge me.
Right.
I can dress what I want.
And I'll be honest with you too. Like, what you just said was the one thing, and then we can get into to your next point, Ryan. I love how when I'm in a place like this, the thought of consumerism doesn't even cross my mind.
Amazon.
I go Amazon. Amazon does have its
It's more for
functions, though.
utility though.
Yeah.
Amazon.
Right.
Yeah.
And like I do the I'll shop for, like you just said something off air, but I do it too with buying pop on Amazon. I'm gonna buy pop on Amazon because it's $4 as
Compared to
opposed
the price, the northern
right,
prices.
right. But I am not I don't have the need to be a consumer. It doesn't even click in my mind. The second I land into Ottawa, I feel like I have to go to a mall. I have to. It's messed up.
Oh, you know what? You're right, and even just the food, the convenience of getting food at a mall.
Right.
It's just you can spend all day there. You don't need to leave.
Everything is trying to take your money
It
down
is. It
there.
really
Yeah.
is. It is. That's the
You can spend an entire day there without being uncomfortable.
right.
One of the things I have noticed about being in this place, being so isolated, like if you remove distractions, you remove literally every aspect of your life, and you're completely isolated, you can make real progress.
Right.
It's a pretty good feeling when you can accomplish things that you were at once unable to accomplish.
Right.
How do you guys accomplish things? What time do you have to wake up in the morning?
So, I thought I had a pretty good schedule last year. I mean, when my wife got pregnant, it kind of messed me up a little bit, not mentally, but my routine. You know, it's just like there's a lot of tossing, there's a lot of turning on both sides, right? There's every time she moves, I get concerned. I'm just like, you know, and then so that at that point, I was honestly for last year. I mean, if school starts at if I'm
8:45?
if we're expected to be at the building at 8:45, I'm snoozing till
Rolling out of bed at
my goodness, and
pretty close to 8:45.
and it really like,
You live pretty close to the school as well. Like, how long does it take you to go from your house to the school?
you know, in the wintertime when I tuck the Honda away, it's about 7 minutes.
Isn't that pretty lovely?
It
Like,
is.
in my opinion, I think we can get almost anywhere in this town in about 7 minutes.
You can't unless
Yeah.
you want to go to Lumber from my house.
Yeah.
Lumber is a little bit of a trek, but you know, if you want to go to Northern, if I want to go to post office, about 12,
Yeah.
right?
I feel like a lot of people also they push the limits to 8:45. Like, you can literally roll out of bed,
Yeah,
be authentic, go to school, and be successful.
right. But you know, I felt like 8:45. My routine was a little bit off, and I felt myself not being as sharp as I wanted to be. So now I feel like when I wake up, my alarm is set for 7. I read so many things, and I push myself to not hit the snooze. I try, you know, it's hard sometimes, but I do push myself, but to not hit snooze. I'm making sure I'm out the door by 7:55. Now that I have the Honda, it takes me less than 5 minutes to get to the school. I have my duffel bag, and then I'm on the treadmill by 8.
Holy.
And I feel like just getting that, even if it's for a walk. Sometimes I might even go for a run. Sometimes I'll just go for a high inclined walk, and I feel like that sweat, the morning shower, I feel good. Like that starts my day off, and I feel like I'm in the right headspace.
Right. So Will and I are teachers at the high school here, and actually Omar is kind of our boss. He works
What?
you work at the blue building.
He does. He
I'm not your boss in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Omar gives us the resources that we so desperately need.
Yeah, incorrect. But That's what should happen.
Yeah. What's your life? What time does the boss man wake up?
Yeah. First of all, I'm not a boss man, and I hope to never be boss, because I would find managing people to be one of the most difficult things.
But what about this? What about the new way of leading? So, for example, the old way of leading, in my opinion, was there was one man in the front. He's got an army behind him. I'm assuming that the new way, like, who wants to be at the front in a war? When you're fighting a war, you want a team beside you. And I think that's sort of the way things are going. Would that interest you at all?
Are you talking about for somewhere that's like in an environment that's progressive, like in the school system, versus what about like Fortune 500 companies?
So I'm always torn between this philosophy. So like I'm always a big fan of like the coach. Like I've been a part of successful teams in the past where there's one coach who says this is how we're doing things. Get to work.
Right.
And I do appreciate that. And that there's also the kind of approach where the leader he makes the plan with the team.
Right.
And then so nobody's unhappy. Usually everyone's happy when we all decide on things together. And if there's problem after problem, we sit down as a team, we discuss what are the problems, how do we solve these, and everyone's kind of working together.
Right.
Versus one person in charge, a lot of responsibility, a lot of pressure, and everyone's got to follow this person's lead.
You're talking about like centralized and decentralized like power or decision making.
Yeah.
But there's also like the type of leader that would you ever see the movie 300?
Yes.
Remember the Persian king?
Yep.
Remember what he never did in the whole movie aside from like when he actually started fighting the king or whatever, but he sits back and just tells everyone else what to do, right?
Just wastes his
That's one type of leader. And then you have the other type of leader, like the king of the 300, who was actually there fighting on like in the dirt, in the mud, fighting with its employees, so to speak. Yeah, like if I were to ever be a boss or something, it would be I could only be that second version. I think sitting back and telling people what to do is like it's really awkward for me. And I remember going to a resort for the first time ever, and it was probably my last, where like everyone was just serving me. And like I think most people kind of like that, I guess, because they sit back and they don't have to do anything and they just tell everyone what to do. Like, hey, bring me this, bring me this. I felt incredibly uncomfortable. I can't. I feel like I'm some bourgeoisie like that thinks he's like his don't stink. That's better than everyone else. It's like, nah, man. I can grab my own drink and my own towels and stuff. You know.
Interesting.
I and there's a lot in that. It makes a lot of sense, and I think like as a secondary, like of the two examples that he gave, as that second example, it shows the relatability within you and the people. And I'll give you a better example. Like it's easier to take advice from a principal who used to teach because they understand your struggle.
Yeah.
Whereas let's say there was someone who just came in from, you know, they went to university, they did this, they did their masters in this. Let's say they did their PhD and then they landed a job, and then they're giving you advice straight from the book. You know what I mean? Well, yeah, I get it. We're all in theory having to follow this book, but you put more value in the book than you do in that personal connection, because you've never been in that situation. You're not in the trenches with me, which is what his name is slipping me from 300. What was
King Leonidas?
Leonidas.
Yeah.
Leonidas was with the people.
Yeah.
Leonidas knew the struggle.
And that's what makes those guys fight even harder, right?
It's like in teachers college, I had to do like a guided reading program, and I remember looking at that program and I was like, oh, this is intense. And the person who created the curriculum never taught. And I'm like, okay.
Isn't that super annoying?
Right. That's where it is. It's just like
a disconnect to reality.
It is.
Yeah.
And her disconnect was, I'm like, this doesn't work for that kid. We had kids. You know who? As soon as I say that kid, you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Last year,
100%.
you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You can't take what we had. You can't take the book, and Omar knows that kid.
Oh yeah.
You can't take that book and say, "Hey, that's gonna work on that kid."
These are the newest strategies
It's not.
that come from
No.
the newest university.
It's not. No, it's
Let's
not.
implement
In the corporate world, we call that the ivory tower,
yeah.
where these guys are so high up there in their freaking nice ivory tower that they just don't have any understanding of the reality on the ground.
Yeah.
And they make all these decisions, and it honestly, it happens in almost every corporation that gets to a certain size that doesn't have a nice flow of communication from the top to the bottom, and then you got all these people like the Bud Light marketing
Still fans. I
executive.
still love Bud Light. They got Dark
Absolutely.
Knight now.
disconnect to reality that like is making decisions from a totally like. Surprised they haven't declared bankruptcy, man.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of light beer. I'll drink them still, no matter what.
And I like this one thing before just to kind of add another point to this topic. You ever hear? I don't want to make up a statistic because I don't have it on me right now, but it's been proven that, let's say someone who starts a business, first generation business owner, the business will thrive. Second generation, so that business owner's child will successfully inherit and grow the business. By the time third generation hits, that business or that finance or that fortune is usually bankrupt, because there's such a distance between the inception, the genesis of that business or that fortune, because I put my heart into it. It was ours. That first generation kid who saw their parent, their mother, their father, whatever, they saw the struggle, they saw the sweat that they put into that business, and then they followed it through. By the time third generation hits, see, because second generation knew what poverty was like, and then they knew what hard work did for their family.
Right.
Third generation only knows the end result.
Yeah.
Right. It's almost like hard times. I heard this translate.
Right.
Have you heard the quote?
Yeah.
I know exactly. Yeah.
And I can't put it verbatim, but I just remember the first part.
Right,
It was like
it's-
hard.
There's 4 stages, I think, or something. It's like essentially it's what you're saying is like the hard times or easy times create like
Hard
weaker
workers.
individuals, and then the weaker individuals create a society that's not healthy, and then through that turmoil you then get strong individuals, and then those strong individuals create a strong society, and then that prosperous strong society then
Build convenience.
convenience and builds easy people, and then they build and then that's the cycle, I guess.
Right. And
Yeah.
it's because of that, I feel like it's that easy. It's that disconnect. And it goes back to what we started it. That disconnect that third generation has, or that easy society had, they don't have that connection that you have on the foot. They don't have 10 toes down on this thing. They just know, well, what do you mean there's poor people? What do you mean that kid? What do you mean I can't read from this book?
They just eat their fancy steak and don't understand that an animal had to die for that.
Right. And so just to go back on that point, I like what you were saying. I do think there's a lot of value in having that relatability with the people you work with, especially as an employer.
How do people get on your bad side?
Man, I think if you're not really, I'd like to think I'm pretty easygoing. I think I'm easygoing. I do think I have expectations too, but I don't feel like I'll bury you if you don't meet the expectations. But were you willing to do the work to try to meet that expectation? And it's like, you can try, and it's like, you can try and fail, right? Someone close to me once had this acronym for fail, right? Like FAIL, first attempt in learning. And it was like, the idea of failing doesn't bother me. It's the idea that you just didn't try. You weren't accommodating enough.
Right.
That's what bothers me. It's like, at least put your best foot forward. Try your best. If one thing doesn't work, do something else. Try something else. Like in our profession, we work with people who have to have a relationship with kids.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
And if you tried one strategy and it fails, and then you say in turn, well, those kids are just a bunch of idiots, that bothers me, because it's like,
what are you doing as a professional to figure it out?
You are a professional.
There's a problem, figure a way around.
That's it. Like, that's what they literally, your salary is literally based on being the critical thinker that you are trying to get your kids to be. So when they don't do that, that's one of the things that I'm like, okay, like, it just seems like I just can't deal with people who are not flexible, obviously, like, figuratively speaking, metaphorically speaking. It's just like, be able to bend. Some of them need you to bend. Some of them you need to meet them where they are. Yes, you have 2 degrees, or you have 3 degrees, or you have blah 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 blah.
Tons of experience.
Right. Some people have been doing this job for 15, 20, 30 years, living all over the world. Yet you have all that experience and you still can't adapt to this. That doesn't make sense to me, and it's just that's the part that bothers me.
I'm thinking I think I know who you're thinking.
There's a bunch.
But one specifically from last year that liked to boast about how she used to be here and there, and it's just like, you would think you would have a little bit more flexibility in your philosophy.
That's what in my opinion, what a professional is. A professional is somebody who can take their foundation and adapt it based on the environment that they're in order to make progress. If you're not making any progress, that's on you. And you can't put that on anybody around you. Right. Yeah, I agree. That bothers me as well.
It is. And I used to be, so as like playing sports in the past, like, you learn that there is no, like, the old like there's that Yoda. My basketball coach used to say the old Yoda, that famous line where it's like, do or do not. There is no try. He hated the idea of but I tried. You know.
You have a plan.
He didn't like the idea of trying. So then he kind of instilled that in us.
Yeah.
Where it's like, even though I knew someone was trying, I would still get on them, because I'm like, well, heck, I did it. But it's like, well, people are not you.
Right.
You know, and that's what I feel like over time I learned that. Being in the school system, I learned that. Going back to CineFX for my second degree and coaching, that's when I really learned that, where I was like, man, like, I can yell and scream at these athletes all I want to do the things that I used to do. They are not me. They have, one of them just lost their father. One of them lost their mother when he was 15. One of them came from a different country. Then I think, you know, over time you kind of learn to just, you change your expectations, and you just understand, like, yo, listen, what are the real important things? And to me, just be flexible, you know. Those are the things that irk me, at least for me.
What you just said kind of reminded me of Karl Marx.
Who's that?
Who's Karl Marx?
I live under a rock, bro.
Yeah,
buddy.
I think you do.
Yeah.
Buddy, Karl Marx is one of the most iconic people in history.
Look him up.
He's the man that wrote the Manifesto to Communism. Okay, he's many consider him the father of communism. Okay, and I don't mean communism in the tainted, distorted form of control, because what people tend to forget is the political spectrum is actually two-dimensional. You have the left and the right, and then you have the up and the down. And the up and the down is probably more important than the left and the right, because the up and the down determines libertarianism versus authoritarianism. So you can have a left authoritarian and a right authoritarian, and those are both bad.
Right.
Because left authoritarian is communist China, and then right authoritarian is Nazi Germany. So the both of those situations are not prosperous to a healthy society and individual freedom and prosperity. So what was I saying before that?
What makes you angry?
Oh, well, I was talking about Karl Marx. So Karl Marx wrote the manifesto along with another gentleman, which Angel, which out of respect for all the crazy politicians out there, Karl Marx didn't write it himself. He co-wrote it, but Karl Marx kind of takes all the credit for it. And one of the most famous Karl Marx quote is probably this one, which is, "From each according to their ability, to each according to their need." And I think like when Will was talking about like the coaching example and like how, you know, the kids aren't him, and I kind of went through that slap in the face years ago when it took me a very, very long time to understand that people don't think like I do, and that something that seems so simple in terms of like morality or justice or righteousness is not so clear cut for others. And I can't like I mean, you can try to persuade people in doing the right thing, but when they do something that you don't agree with or the wrong thing, I have to remind myself to be like, okay, this individual may not have grown up with the same principles as I did, or like with the parents that I did, with the discipline, or like, you know, trying to be a good person or whatever. Not to say that we excuse that behavior, which is something that I think this town needs to work on, is accountability. So yes, people have different backgrounds that might lead to different behavior. But I think what's important is still having accountability when people don't behave in the what's best for the community, and that behavior gets rectified and gets shown why we don't behave that way, and why behaving this way is more conducive to like everyone being happy, including yourself, because we all live in this very remote community of 3,000 people in the middle of fucking nowhere. So if we can't get along and we can't create this harmonious society, and it's a sub-society, like we don't live down south connected to the rest of the world, like, you know, Ontario and whatever. So we almost have to like take charge of our own community, right? And make sure that it's functioning the best way possible. And I feel like there's been a lot of apathy. I think that's like probably the most crippling thing here. It's not world experience or knowledge, and it kind of comes back down to like the trying, and like people don't want to try. Like, I don't even know if it's a fear of failure or just like full on apathy that they just fucking don't care. They don't care. So there's no desire to try. It's just whatever.
And there are like, so in this town there's 3,000 people. How many jobs are there here? Is there like 200?
That's a good question.
Yeah,
it's very few.
There are definitely very few.
Sure.
I know one of the things I asked in the past was relating to, I remember asking someone, because Rankin Inlet has a like a pipe system for their water.
I think. Oh,
they do. It's all through pipe. There's no water trucks in Rankin, right?
Interesting.
So I asked someone. I'm like, not because I was like, oh, this system sucks. I was just genuinely curious about, oh, has there ever been the intention to switch? And
like, what would be the intention to switch in the first place?
probably just convenience.
Like for them to switch from pipe to truck.
No, from like in Arviat to switch from truck to pipe.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. What?
And
what did they say?
So they said they actually did. Like, this is from Donkoh. I'm just telling you what someone told me.
Right.
Someone said that there actually was movement on that, but the amount of jobs that would be lost on that alone was way too. It was, they just could not justify losing that many jobs
Wow.
to open up your convenience, right?
Right.
Because in a town like this, you need to stimulate the economy. You need to have people working, and the unfortunate part about it is those same people who want to work, who want to be productive to their society and give, and give in the way they want to give. And in this case, it's, you know, they drive the trucks and they'll deliver your water. That's a lot of jobs.
Right.
And I don't want to give a number. I can't remember what she said. It was something like, I think it was in the hundreds that would lose work. And it's like hundreds in a main source of income for a lot of people. That it's like, well, the only source of income for a lot of people, but one of the biggest jobs in this place.
Like, those are the breadwinners.
It is, and you lose all that, you lose all those jobs. So it's like, yeah, I think there were opportunities to, I guess, quote unquote, kind of modernize, but they're just like, we can't. Just in that situation, they just couldn't because of the amount of job loss.
Right. Yeah, and also there is an incentive to have children. Like, I believe it seems like there's, the government pays Inuit people to have for per child.
Not necessarily just Inuit. Like
Was it everyone?
It is. Well, like I I just had my first kid, and then I got a check in the mail for government child tax.
No way. What's
Yeah.
that like? Oh, is it the same amount?
No, the heck no.
It's not the same. It's based off your income.
It is.
Oh,
yeah, so,
wow. Okay, this
yeah.
is new. I'm learning new things here.
Yeah, I got like $40. You know what I
Interesting.
mean? Like 40, $50, whatever
Wow.
it was.
So the more kids you have and the less money you make, the more money you get through
Yeah.
child tax.
It is.
So, who set that system up?
I don't know, but they're just essentially using kids as farming things here now.
Yeah.
They have kids, they don't take care of them, and they just collect checks.
Yeah, and
And I'm not saying it's everyone, but it's a lot of people.
yeah.
A lot of people.
The realistic is, and I guess this does apply down south as well. You're raised by your peers.
Right.
And so, like, even down south, like, they say the same thing. Like, once you hit 12 years old, your parents are obsolete. Like, pay attention. If you're a parent, pay attention to who your kids are hanging out with. Up here, yeah, there's just a. Alright, I'll go this way. Yeah, good call. Omar to the rescue.
I was actually listening to someone on a podcast yesterday. His name is oh man, I don't want to butcher his name. It's like Dr. Gabor Mate.
From what podcast?
He's a Canadian child psychologist, psychologist. And he was actually saying how I don't want to lose your last point, but he was saying how he did not say Inuit in general, but he said hunter gatherers are the best parents he's ever studied.
Interesting.
Yeah, because you just mentioned something about 12 years old, and then what did you say? Repeat what
You're
you
raised
said.
by your peers.
Right. So, and then at 12 years old, you feel like you lose that connection, right? In the Western world, we teach our not only just our children, but it's frowned upon in Western society to not become independent, right?
Right.
Whereas in a lot of African cultures, Indian cultures, Inuit cultures, collectivism wins, right?
Right.
And what he was saying was hunter-gatherers never are disconnected from their children because the connection is number one.
I don't know if we live in a hunter. So I agree. So I've heard of a lot of philosophies
Right.
of hunter and gatherers.
Right.
One of the philosophies too is there's no, I guess historically, like when it comes to the written history, there's no documentation of angry teenagers in hunter-gatherer societies.
I think that's what he was kind of talking about too, because like, think about it. Like, what he made a great point, because he was like, let's say you live in a world like I said, Western world, where you teach independence, and then let's say you had a 17-year-old kid who already had a disconnect from you as a parent, and you said, hey, you're not listening, go to timeout. What do you think your 17-year-old kid is gonna say if you said, hey, go to your room and stay there?
We're all thinking the same.
Yeah, they'll be like,
two
yeah,
words.
sure. They'll be like, yeah, sure. Yeah. They don't care. They lost that connection.
Right.
Whereas, could you imagine telling that? And you work here. You know you know these kids. Imagine telling a 17-year-old kid here, I don't want you. Here, go to your room. They would take that so personally, because the connection was number one.
Right.
Right?
Mm.
The connection. Here they talk about a lot of things where it's like they don't discipline their kids, they don't this. Like, you could look at it from that perspective, or you could look at it from, we valued our connection with them. All we cared about was the connection. We did not want to upset the kid because we wanted that connection.
Right.
We gave them everything they wanted, even to their detriment, because we wanted to value that connection. Right. So when you take that connection away from them, it hurts them to their core. And that's what he was trying to say. Like, hunter-gatherer societies, when they go, kids come with us.
Right.
You know what I mean? We are here. In Western societies, we're like, oh, we need to sleep train our kids from the time they're 8 months old. Yeah. Because I need my sleep.
Or nanny, babysitter.
Nanny, babysitter. Oh, you did something wrong? Go to your room.
Right.
See, we value what we value. We value their behavior.
Yeah, like their complacency
Right.
to our rules.
That's it. More than the connection with them.
Right. And also, I guess in Western society, the more complacent you are, the higher you go in the system.
Because you're it's that ego, that drive, that it's what people say is that toxicity about people. As an athlete, that's what helped me thrive. As an individual, that helped me thrive, because it was like, I don't care about all you.
Right.
I'm here doing this for me, and I'm gonna get this. So I was like, I am getting this. I was the independent. I was the I was solely responsibility for my success.
Yeah.
And that's the Western view versus a place like this where it's like,
But it's interesting that you mentioned the connection, and like how a parent might not want to discipline their child because they feel like in doing so they like diminish that connection. I find that interesting, and I'm not saying it's wrong. I just find it interesting because like, not to compare kids to dogs, but I mean dogs are essentially 2-year-old kids. The relationship that I have with my dogs is like, I feel like when I need to discipline them, and that relationship I have through the disciplinary process is almost like building more of a connection.
Right.
I feel like when parents don't want to push their kids away by disciplining them, it's almost like you're kind of doing that by not disciplining them. I don't know.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. 'Cause I honestly do see a lot of value in giving some form of discipline. I think there's discipline everywhere, right? Even now as adults, if we don't do what we're supposed to do, we have to be accountable for our actions. Yes. Essentially, like, not just in work but in society. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I can't just drive past a red light and think that, oh, you know what I mean?
Or better example is, I can't drive around blackout drunk in my vehicle around town and run over people and kill them.
Right.
And nothing happens.
There has to be, right. So I honestly do value the idea of discipline, because it also shows them that you have to. I think that's where the line is thin, because it's like, you still have to let them know that your connection is strong, but let them know this cannot be your standard.
And I think that's why the administration of discipline
Right.
is so important.
Right.
Because you can administer discipline in a very negative way that does the
Yeah.
opposite,
Yeah.
and then one that's actually constructive.
Right.
But I think it's hard to find the constructive discipline because people, I guess, when people get to the point where they feel like they do need to discipline, they've either lost some patience, they're frustrated, they're maybe angry, there's
Right.
lots of emotions running, and then maybe the execution of that discipline isn't as optimal as it should be.
Right. Right. Yeah, for sure. Because and I think you definitely made a great point because there is power in words. Like I can't just be mad and then all of a sudden just say something because those words might impact that individual. Like for example, if I'm disciplining a child and then I say, why do you keep doing dumb things? Or oh man, like they told me not to have kids. Like even though you're saying that, like you think it's just kind of like a thing people say, you know, like kids are they think everything is about them, right? They think everything is about them. So they're going to take that to heart because like, man, that person is miserable because of me. So there is a way that you have to do it. Obviously, like, and that's why I said I do like the idea of discipline. I think it's necessary because it builds accountability. I do think that, you know, they have to do it in a way that builds you up as opposed to tears you down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's kind of like those coaches that I've always been a fan of coaches that are more
player friendly.
yeah, and I watch a lot of soccer and I see like who the most successful managers are, and they're the ones that have the strongest connection with their
Right.
players.
Right.
And it's not necessarily that they have the best players, it's that the connection with their players is so strong that the players are like an extension of the coach.
Right.
And there's just like this incredible synergy going on, and you can see it by the way that the players just pour their heart out onto the field. And they're doing that because they believe in their leader.
They do.
And when people believe in their leader and believe in the direction and the mission, it's like they'll die for that.
They will. And like right now we're looking at this like big fat head. This fat head. It's a poster.
Oh, is that
Yeah.
his name?
We're looking at this fat head of Patrick Mahomes, but Patrick Mahomes is not afraid to fail because his coach has allowed him to have that freedom. If you had a coach that was super rigid
Yeah.
and super disciplinarian and no give, maybe some of the things that made him great in taking those chances,
Yeah.
he might not even take them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And on your sports analogy was great because like that's where a great coach will give you that flexibility. Say, listen, go there. I believe in you. If you fail, we'll talk about why you failed. We will work on why you failed, but I'm not gonna down you. I'm not gonna tear you down for failing because that failure, that attempt to failure, is actually what makes you great.
Exactly.
That want to go for it, like, yeah, like, it's kind of like going back to the whole Nunavut thing. I give so much credit to people who come up here, even if they're here for a year. It's like, do you know what it took for you to even just come here? Sometimes people leave in like a couple months or a year and they're like, oh man, you know, like the place tore me down or blah blah blah, or I failed.
You didn't even give it a
And
chance.
it's like man, but you went, you did it.
Yeah.
You weren't afraid. Someone was in your ear, someone close to you, someone next to you was giving you that confidence, and said, or maybe you were raised with it, whatever it is, but like you had that confidence.
Most people wouldn't take that
No,
step.
and then I think that's where in your coach scenario, people might be afraid to fail. And it's like, oh, I don't know, it's hard, I heard it's this, it snows, it's -60, it's blah 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 blah.
To be fair though, it's almost like if Chantel and I tried to do this move 5 years before we moved up here, no chance. I think we would have failed hard.
Why do you say that?
Because I think I think there was a lot of mental preparation that happened
Right.
over the years before we moved
Right.
up. I think that's part of why our move has been so successful, at least more than I guess most people.
Right.
Like, I mean, I we talk about this being our last year, but even still, that's 3 solid years, and spending most of the summers up here as well.
Right.
Yeah, it's when you think about how many people don't make the step to even try living here, and then how many people actually stay here for an extended period of time.
Right.
We're like part of single digit, like less than 5% of the world population in terms of what we've been able to do here.
Right.
Which I think is, like, to your point, is pretty incredible.
How long are you guys planning on staying here?
Did you hear me say that?
No. Did you guys already cover this?
I just mentioned. I just
Dang
talked
it.
about how Chantel and I.
Yeah.
This might be our last year.
Yeah. How long have you been here in total?
It will be 3 solid years at that point.
And
And for me, that includes the summers.
wait, what do you mean?
'Cause I've
it's
stayed every
consecutive,
summer.
Consecutive.
Wow, you've stayed for 3 consecutive
Yeah,
years?
I don't go down south.
Wow.
I go for, like, the most I went was for a week to see my mom in March because she's, like, having health issues. But that was it. I don't come in. I don't go down.
How do you spend your summers?
Up here, man. And
Yeah.
that's kind of like what we were talking about.
I've already missed
initially.
everything. You guys did a great job carrying this podcast.
the freedom to, like, physical freedom, but
Yeah.
also the mental freedom, the psychological freedom. Every time I come down to the south, I feel so constricted.
Right.
Here, I just feel like it's just the just fresh air, both literally and metaphorically.
Considering how much work there is to be done up here, does that ever overwhelm you guys?
Yeah.
How do you find a balance between work life and time off?
Working 4 days a week.
Honestly, everybody should do that.
Hold on. Are you talking about like?
Just like work balance life.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about like societally. Like like me, like my work versus and like my work versus my leisure.
Yeah.
Oh, like I have a no talk about work after 6 rule.
Yeah.
I won't do it.
That's actually pretty sweet. So like your home life is home and your work life is work.
I won't do it, man. Like my first year, I would not sleep. I'd lose sleep because I'm like, man, like, is this lesson plan gonna work for this person? Is this gonna happen? Like, what's gonna happen? I'm like, and then like, it got to a point where I was like, I can't be. I'm a cadaver by the time I get to work because I haven't slept all night.
Yeah.
And who is this benefiting?
Yeah, nobody.
There's and then it kind of, I got to the realization where you have to understand, I am not from here. This place has been this place because this place has built their economy. They've
Right.
built their environment. I am a guest here. It's not my responsibility to place the like today we just did a Orange Shirt Day, Truth and Reconciliation. There's generations of trauma that this place has experienced and encountered,
Right, we're like 50 years behind schedule.
bro.
Yeah.
So for me to put the weight of change solely on me, it's not possible. That's where I got to the realization where I was like, I have to get to a point where, and this is the most important part, that those hours that I'm in the building has to be not only effective but changing. It has to be. So when I leave the building, I know I gave this building the best I had. I gave those kids the best I had. I have to live with those results.
Right.
So by the time 6 o'clock hits, I am me.
Right.
I have to put that behind.
Oh, Will, can you just can you do
No, I will not, because
Yeah.
burnout is real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Burnout is real, and that mental strain. Like you can't be a professional
Yeah.
if you are melting.
Yeah.
You can't. And that same podcast I was listening to, someone said, how could parents best care for their kids, his answer was parents have to self-care first.
Yes.
Because if the parent is healthy,
Right.
the kid will know healthy.
Yeah.
Right.
It's no difference in work. If I'm unhealthy, the kid's gonna know I'm unhealthy. I come in, I'm not shaved, my face is a mess, I probably stink. Did I wear deodorant? I don't know. I'm angry all the time. I'm always.
Maybe I'm wrong, but would you say that that comes from sports? Like, because you understand that, like, when you have to deliver a level of performance in your basketball game,
Right.
for example, you know that the level of sleep you had the night before, what you ate the day before even, and what you ate that day, all of those factors are going to contribute to you having like a 80% plus rating on that game, or like I just like my
Right.
coach is gonna talk to me after this game.
Right. Yeah, great connection.
I think
yeah.
I think being an athlete, and I'm not saying that I was an athlete, but I remember when I was in sports regularly and I wasn't taking care of those things, and then it affected me so negatively when like I needed to push my body to the extreme,
Right.
both body and mind, and I wasn't able to deliver the results that I knew I could and I wanted to.
Right.
So then I had to like, okay, I got to make sure I rest up. I got to make sure I do this, that, maybe stop drinking so much the night before so I can play that much better for that game. And I think when you care about what you put out, I
Right.
think it also helps, right? Because like when I was playing sports, I didn't want to be that guy on the team that like people point the finger at, like, oh, that's why we lost the game
Right,
today, right?
right.
Like I didn't want to be that guy.
Right.
Maybe I guess out of fear, like you push yourself to be better, but whatever the reason or whatever the motivation, I think that's why sports is so important, even if you're not. And I have this talk with Chantel a lot, because Chantel is not a sports person.
Right.
And she complains a lot about when she's forced to do sport things.
Okay.
And then I'm like, forget about the actual sport activity. It's like, it's the collaboration and the communication
Right.
and like the working together as one kind of entity is, I think, where the sports, you can extract a lot of value
Right.
in that, regardless of what your profession. And even if you're not athletic, and even if you can't kick that ball or swing that bat as hard as other people, coming down to like the trying part and like just putting your best foot forward and being like, okay, I kicked the ball this way and it kind of did some weird shit. Okay, so how do I make sure that, next time when I kick the ball, I can get it to where I need to go? And all that kind of like problem solving, it might, that in that situation might deal with the ball, but that
Right.
problem solving and like dealing with that mental obstacle is going to, I think, in my belief,
Right.
help you in another situation.
For tomorrow, yes, and that connection was spot on. It's like and to me, that mental preparation was taking it down at 6:00. That had to be my mental training.
Exactly.
Because I knew that, and let's go back to what you were just saying. If I didn't turn it down at 6:00, that curveball that I'm trying to hit, that arc on the shot that I'm trying to shoot, that slider that I'm trying to throw, I wouldn't be able to do it because I was not fit to be able to do that the next day or during game day. So that's where that whole idea of shutting it down at 6:00, it's like self-care in a place that you are foreign to is so
Critical.
important. It's huge.
What do you have like a self-care ritual or like a routine? Like I know Omar does. Yep, we got pretty much a
It's
similar
funny
one.
because you talked about morning routines, and I never talked about my morning routines. You know what it is?
What is it?
It's I gotta wake up, and I'm like, this, and then sometimes I'm like, it, I'm gonna be late today. I'm gonna email my boss, be like, yo, I had some issues this morning. I'm coming in late.
Email?
Yeah. From bed, still in my underwear. Okay, mornings are rough for Omar. Okay.
Yeah.
But I do have a routine after work. Kind of like how you have your cutoff at 6. Like even after like Shant, and that's part of why I built my gaming room.
Yeah. Wait. You're
like-
you're downstairs? Or
No,
upstairs?
I have an upstairs gaming room
Wow.
where I go spend time by myself. I don't have to hear anybody, see Chantel, nothing. I'm just in my fucking zone.
This is a new thing that I heard about, and I wonder if video game falls into this category. Like, I heard reading books is a form of meditation.
Can be.
Is video games a form of meditation?
100,000%.
Yeah, it is.
Of course.
I feel like there's a ton of things that are sort of like meditation. Maybe fitness.
But anything you're passionate about
Exactly.
is a form of meditation.
That's it right there.
It really is. Like,
that's it.
If you can't tell an avid jogger that them going on a jog, even though for me that sounds like the part below the depths. But to them, it's the meditation they need.
My boss was a Boston Marathon runner every year.
Where? Here?
My old boss at TD, she would go down to Boston, do the marathon every day.
Wow.
I never fucking understood, like, how can you get she had enormous pleasure out of running like 20 miles, okay? But you know what, like, man, you found your love and passion.
There's easier ways to get that dopamine.
Listen, our vice principal challenged me to a 10K run that she changed to a 15K run, and I took it. I was like, listen, I was stubborn enough to take it. That cramp I hit at like 11K was epic.
Yeah.
I hit the cramp.
What was your mentality at that moment?
Don't let her win.
No. I like from 0 to 11.
Yeah.
I like by the time I hit 6K, my legs were feeling it. Like I can tell, like, man, you're gonna probably have to slow down. But I feel like I'm pretty stubborn.
You got that lion.
I try, and I'm just like, yo, I'm not losing to her. I'm not gonna lose to her because, listen. And she knows who she is when she listens to this. She is the worst trash talker in the world. She just trash talks. So I'm like, I'm not losing to this trash talker.
It's on.
But at 11, and credit to her, she kept going and she won. She did. She beat me fair and square. And I was like, listen, I'm gonna take all the bashing that you got because
She's the lion.
in this situation, yes. But at 11, my legs were done, and for the next 4-5 days, my legs were over.
Yeah.
So the idea of a Boston Marathon, which is 20 plus or whatever it is.
But here's the thing, like, I'm not built for marathons, and you're built for, like, thrusts of power. It seems like some people can just run, and it's like fucking having a picnic for them.
Yeah, some of it. Yeah, they're those easy those light.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. She
those
weighs
skeleton-
how much? 110.
I'd say no, it can't be more than 130.
Yeah, good luck in a fight.
110 to 130.
She can run,
Yeah.
but
She's carrying 100 less
pros
pounds
and cons.
than me.
Pros and cons.
Yeah.
Pros and cons to everything.
So yeah, like honestly, like just to go back, I think it's anything. Like if you look at, just go down the street, so many people after work are in their garages working on their Hondas, and I think it's so impressive how that's their self-care. Their self-care is,
It's true.
I'm going in my shed and I'm working on my. I don't know a lick about Hondas.
And getting ready for the hunt the next
Right?
day. You actually reminded me about a point that I wanted to mention, and I should write my stuff on here. And you did bring. You mentioned something about of like the we were talking about the community and like the family and the raising of the children. And one of the things that I kind of wanted to bring to light was how I'm starting to see a very strong correlation between the families that hunt and are in their garage working on their Hondas and doing those like practical hunter kind of things that you would expect in a community like this, and the kids that those families raise.
Right.
There's a very strong correlation between the quality of the parenting, those kids that are being raised from those families, from that kind of culture. And I think that's why you have the Akimavik Society over there in the green building beside the school that do the Young Hunter program.
Right.
And why they... And now I'm starting to like see why they're so adamant on getting people back into hunting, because that whole process, working on the Honda, making sure it's ready for the next day, packing your stuff,
GPS,
all that,
tent,
all that,
kerosene.
like that process of getting ready and going out. And by the way, going out all day on the land is gruesome
and
hard.
reactive. They're reacting to their environment. They're finding tracks. They're figuring out things where to go.
Right.
That's the problem solving, the creativity, all that stuff, that great stuff that we try to promote in school. They're learning that on the land, and they're doing it out of a passion,
Yes,
out of a true desire. And there's a lot of like memes that the kids throw out about like, oh, I gotta wake up for school, and like, and then the next scene is like, or like, you know that Drake, where he's like,
Yep.
omissive, and then
Yeah.
he's like, whatever.
Yeah.
It's like omissive to like waking up at 8:30 on a weekday to go to school, but then they'll wake up at 6 a.m. to go out boating on the weekend, right? Like it's just like a passion thing and a motivation thing.
Neil deGrasse Tyson says something very similar. He's like, so the point of school is to become competent in your individual life.
That's fair.
And some students actually, even if they're not attending, like, so there might be some students that you have in your class that are missing a lot. They might be failing your class, but they're balancing a checkbook. They're taking care of 13 brothers and sisters. They're buying food. They're figuring out a plan.
Going out hunting.
Yeah, going out hunting.
Yeah.
They actually don't need school. They're fine.
But not even that. Like, you can't tell me that kid who might not have as high as an achievement level as their peer in,
like an academic student.
like that, like their peer in, let's say, Ottawa, you can't tell me that this kid is not more competent in life than that kid who probably has a higher education, which we value more, sitting in Ottawa right now. Like, this kid actually balances their entire life, their entire family's life. And just like Omar said, hunting is not just an event that you just wake up and go. It's a process. And these kids have to deal with that process, have to deal with the families, have to deal with the struggles of those families, of the 13 or the 14 or the 15 or how many people they live with. The years of history that they have to deal with and traumas that they have to deal with in the house. And then come to school just for the Southern teacher to say, they don't do a lick. You know what I mean? Like,
and you're stupid. You're stupid.
There's no way you can tell
Meanwhile,
me that this kid
the
is
people that are telling the kids they're stupid wouldn't have the first idea of how to open up an animal and carve it for food and consumption.
They couldn't live. Listen, I'll be the first to say this. I could not live a day in some of these kids' lives,
Right.
Because their responsibility is so high. They're asked to do so. Oh, what did you do this weekend? Ask any kid in the South what you did this weekend, and I guarantee you it's a lot of leisure. Ask these kids what they did this weekend. I had to babysit my brothers, and then I had to do this, and then my sisters needed this, and then like they jokingly say sleep, but I'm like, man, I can see it. You're exhausted. You know what I mean?
When I started subbing at the school, my first experience with a bad kid, and I'm gonna call him out because this story is going to turn around. But it was as I think a lot of teachers have issues with. But this was my first experience with, and he didn't do anything directly to me, but I could see that he was he had some behavioral and troubles and stuff in the classroom. But one of the things I'll say about, and because I've been out on the land a couple times with him, and I see what he does, and for his family outside of school, even when he was still not graduated. And when I first encountered this person, I had like such like an idea, like a judgment about him. And then I quickly learned about his circumstance and like what he actually does outside of school. And I'm just like, dude, you can do whatever the fuck you want in school, man. Like
It's incredible.
That's what it was. Like, it was just this total 180. I'm like, and you know what's funny? As soon as I kind of recalibrated my brain, he was like my go-to right-hand man.
Empathy is a real thing, man.
He was like, he would, when I needed to tell the kids to like settle down and shit, this guy was like backing me up. I'm like, what the fuck?
Isn't that the best?
But when they know you empathize for their situation,
Yeah.
they know like it's genuine. They know someone who's genuine to them versus someone who's just not.
Man, I almost teared up the other day in school. I went to the shop class.
Okay.
The shop class typically has the worst behavior students there.
Yeah.
So I went to the shop class just to check in with the teachers. Like, hey, I have to go to the shop outside the. It's located across from the elementary school. Do you have the key? And he's like, yeah, I have the key. Do you want it right now? And I said, actually, there's about 10 minutes until my next class. I'm not quite prepared. I have to go prepare for my class. Do you think I could come by after school? The guy, one of the students who had massive behavior problems, said, what do you need? And I said, I have to go, I have to put this label on top of a fire extinguisher as part of my responsibility as a health and safety committee. And he said, Ryan, don't worry about it. We got you. I was like, what?
Nice.
Yo! And then that was just to have a relationship with one of the worst behaving students in the school is very nice. Once it hits, it's like, now I understand. It's like, all right, that we should prioritize relationships first. And then once you have a relationship and you have a little bit of influence on this person's life, then you can start making progress. But to demand progress without having that relationship, you're gonna run into chaos every single time.
And it's like, and even then, like, honestly, working in a place like this even taught me how to look at behaviors differently. Like, and this is something I saw from the podcast yesterday. Let's say you were living in, like, I don't know. Let's say I took you and dropped you right into, I don't know, South Korea. Do you speak Korean?
No.
Okay. So let's say you had not a dime on your hands, not a dime in your pockets, and you needed to eat.
Yeah.
How would you? What are the things that you would do to express that you need to eat?
Right. I would like pat my tummy.
Yeah, you would act out.
Yeah.
You'd play charades.
Yeah.
You would literally act out.
Right.
Acting out is your way of showing people,
You need
I need your help.
Yeah.
Wow.
I need you.
Yeah.
So
Right.
them acting out is literally them saying, yo, this is the only way I get people to listen to what I'm saying.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's like, we're so used and we're so wanting the kid to sit in their seat and be quiet and not say a lick. And then it's like, oh wow, this person is amazing. How many times do we have a student who sits there, doesn't say a lick, doesn't do anything, but they sit there in their seat, all in their rows, all quiet, and then we're like, oh, that kid is great. Meanwhile, they didn't hand in a thing.
Right. Yep. They were complacent, which we value down south.
But then the kid who acts out, we're like, oh no, that's the kid, that's the negative one.
Right.
So it's like we gotta. This place really showed me, like, everyone. Listen, honestly, and we're humans, right? Like there's obviously, like, there's acting out, and then there's malicious intent. Like,
Right.
obviously there are kids who sometimes it's malicious, and you just have to deal with those behaviors. But when the kids are acting out, I think you had an experience with a kid who historically acted out, and you connected with them somehow. Omar connected with that kid.
Right.
And because if that kid was really the bad kid, they would have continued to be the bad kid.
Right.
But O built that connection with them.
Yeah.
You built some kind of connection with them, and it was like, or I don't know who it was, him or he, she, whatever it was. And it was like, how could I help you? If it was really a bad kid, they're not saying, let me help you. They're like,
Yep.
get the heck out of here.
100%.
Right? I don't know. I saw that in a thing yesterday, and I was like, man, like, whoever this guy on this podcast was, this Dr. Mate, he was spitting some, like, real stuff like that was really having me really think about, like, especially things up here.
I think and kind of like the self-care thing, and I forgot to mention this, but your ability to understand what you need to be the best version of yourself comes from experience. And I think, like, over time we kind of learn who we are, what our bodies require, and what we need to do to make sure we're like fully optimized. I don't think it's like, if you were to ask me 10 years ago what Omar needs to take care of himself, like, it would be not even close to what the list is now. There wouldn't be a routine at night to make sure I wind down and do all this thing.
Right.
It would just be go, 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 do as much as you want, make as much as you want, have as much fun as you want. And I forgot what I was gonna say about the kids regarding that.
Behavior, the connection you made.
Nah, it's gone.
But I think ultimately I just think you're relating to them. Honestly, I think that's what it is. I think you now, like, that whole idea of winding down, dealing with this, doing the things that I need to do to be successful. And guess what, Omar, you're human, man. I'm human. If I don't do those things, I'm gonna act out too. If I don't do those things, I'm gonna be miserable.
I'm gonna be a worse version of myself.
Yeah,
straight up.
And then what? Am I gonna be called the bad person?
Yep.
Sure, of course they will,
100%.
because people are gonna just know me as,
Yes.
And you'll get frustrated, like, why do they know me? I'm a good person.
When you act out. I'm gonna make a video before I leave this place, and it's going to be. It's not going to be rude or anything like that, but it's going to be like an Omar's uncensored, what you need to know before you move up to the Arctic or Nunavut as a
Need
southerner,
those.
okay?
Yeah.
Like, and we were talking about this earlier about how there was a lot of information that wasn't really relayed to us before we moved up, like in the example of Will.
I'll be completely honest. I've tried recruiting. I've written beautiful letters. I've left out a few things.
Well, I mean, you're trying to recruit people, right?
Yeah,
So you don't
yeah,
want to
yeah.
scare people.
Yeah. So it happens.
But
I
if
understand
you,
where they're coming from.
if you gave them the full picture, half of them would probably say, "F that,"
yeah.
right? So I understand why it's presented in that way, but the point is like, and it kind of reminds me of when bushcrafting and outdoor life got really popular, maybe like 5-10 years ago, and you got all these like people on YouTube doing all these outdoor adventure stuff, and it was glamorized so much. Then so other people got attracted and became like this like Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest thing of like going out on making your own things into the forest. And what people didn't realize is that there's a lot for every like one good moment, there's like 5 moments you got to deal with to get that one good moment. And then they don't show those 5 moments.
Right.
They just show the one
And
good
it's
moment.
a thankless job. No one's gonna thank you for anything, but you got to do it.
no. They don't thank you for.
Nah.
You don't get thanks for doing your.
So I think like the video that I want to make is
Yeah.
going to be just like here's straight up like what you're walking into, and it's not going to be like, oh, this place is like nothing like that. No, because I have a lot of respect for this place and like the people that live here and like what they have to deal with. And here's the here's the privileged position of what we're talking about, is that we have the ability to get up and get out of here.
Right.
Most of these people don't.
Right.
They're literally stuck here for
And
their
that's where
whole life.
stress. I think that's where a lot of stress comes from. Is if you run into a problem and you literally have no other options. That's where a lot of there's there's this high expectation and high responsibility.
Well, that's why partially why the suicide rate is so high.
Yep, you've no other option.
And
It
there's
is
not
what
a
it is.
lot of like, you look at like the people that live in a household of 13 kids sharing a room with like 5 siblings,
Sleeping with the light
bathroom,
on all night.
no sheets. They just like, the typical house here. And then these people don't have the ability to just get out of here.
And there's not even like a skate park where you can go and focus your anger, or like some place that you can just go.
It's funny you say skate park,
I like skate parks.
because this is now okay. So I'm a big firm believer of skate parks, and I'm only saying this because in my town of Pickering, which by the way I grew up in 20 years, and we went from a city where you would walk through that park and literally have machetes like swing out at you, like asking for your cash, to now it's just like elderly people walk their dogs in the park now. And the whole shift was the skate park, and it kind of like it stabilized the whole park in a weird way. It gave the kids an outlet to do their stuff, to like graffiti and spray paint all their shit, and have like a place to call their own. It was almost like an ownership thing for them.
Yeah.
It gave the kid, okay, this is your place. You guys can do whatever the fuck you want with the skate park, but it's your place to do what you want.
It's a form of meditation.
And over time, you could that skate park now is actually like a tourist attraction now in Pickering because the art there is incredible. And it's actually well taken care of. It's actually a really, really nice park.
Yeah. What was the budget on the skate park? Was it a really nice one?
I have no idea. But it was a decent skate park. Like
Yeah.
from a skateboarder's perspective,
Yeah.
like you could
Everything.
yeah, you're good. You got your rails, your grinds, half pipes.
See,
you,
okay.
you got a bowl there even.
So I brought this up to one of my superiors a few years ago, and I just said, hey, like, why don't we have this here yet? And so this is somebody, in my opinion, now who's very unprofessional. He ended up leaving anyways, but he was my superior at the time. He said, and I think he was knowledgeable. And here's what he said: he said, "There's a housing shortage. Why would we put a skate park when we don't have enough houses?" And I was like, fair enough. That is.
I don't buy that. It's like you obviously have a housing issue, but you also have other issues, and it doesn't mean we can't deal with multiple problems at once.
Interesting. We just need maybe more people to solve these problems.
Like the skate park is not solving the housing issue. That's not what we're trying to accomplish by
Right.
that. It's to give the kids an outlet so they don't destroy the town and do stupid
Yeah.
steal and whatever.
You treat someone like an animal, they're gonna behave like an animal.
Yeah.
Well, however, we're pretty pressed for time here.
Yes.